Hello and hi to everyone. Welcome to this new session of Encuentro Creativo. Today we are representing Accademia Italiana. Accademia Italiana is an Italian international university located in Florence and in Rome. We operate in the creative field, means that we have courses in design, in fashion, in communication, in graphics, and in photography. Today, of course, the focus will be mainly on the photography industry. I would like to remind everyone that Accademia Italiana is pleased to announce that for the fifth edition of Encuentro Creativo, it will award one full scholarship for the summer course in photography in Florence for the summer 2026. So please make sure that in order to participate and to make sure that you are eligible for this type of scholarship, you need to attend at least for 50% of all the editions of Encuentro Creativo webinars. You'll need to have at least 16 years or above, okay? The course will be taught in English, so make sure that you have minimum requirements for the language. Now, without further ado, I would like to introduce you our speakers. Today we are pleased to have Chiara Ruberti and Emanuele Camerini. Chiara Ruberti is an art historian and photography curator from Pisa, currently serving as a coordinator for the photography department at Accademia Italiana in our institute, and curator of Photolux Festival, with an extensive experience in curatorial, editorial, and educational projects in the field of photography. We also are pleased to welcome Emanuele Camerini, which is coming from Rome. Is a visual artist which work blends conceptual and documentary photography. His projects have been exhibited internationally, awarded by institutions such as Maeci and MIC, and featured lending publication including the New York Times, Financial Times, and Monocle. Now, I would like to leave the floor to Chiara. Hi, Chiara. We cannot hear you.
Yes, sorry. Hi, Ruslan. Hi, everyone. So we are going to start, I think, and we we are going to talk about contemporary documentary photography. And so, like, what's the landscape nowadays, and we will have a look to some of the newest body works by Emanuele Camerini, like to deepen a bit the main topics related to documentary photography. So like to start, can we move forward? Do you see the, okay. So like, photography has always been a powerful medium for telling stories from like its invention from the very beginning, and it's still a medium for storytelling, disseminating ideas, and providing also like a kind of collaborative space for reflection upon contemporary issues and also individual and self-examination. But nowadays, with this like very complex moment that we are living with kind of post-truth and fake news and social media made narratives, it's even more complicated to know what we are looking at when we talk about pictures. So if it's real, if it's half truth, if it's fiction, if it's like entertainment also. So it's complicated to define what we are looking at. And so how can we tell stories that can be defined ours to tell how to like
how can we find our own voice in a world where everyone is empowered to tell their own story with a camera? So like documentary photography is exactly the place where this reflection happens nowadays. And it's like where we can
in a way convey our idea of the world. So we will go through like a very brief introduction about contemporary narratives in contemporary documentary photographies, and then we will talk about Emanuele's work through his editorial project and his personal project as well. So like talking about contemporary narratives, we can talk about icons related to documentary world and the new approaches. And so like we can see together what's changing nowadays. So nowadays, documentary photography deals with post photography and meta photography. So like all those iconosphere related to images and not just to photography. So we can talk also, we can use also generated images. There is this AI impact on storytelling that plays a role in documentary photography. We deal with transmedia narratives, so not just photography, but also other media interacting with photography. And there is also like a very important other aspect that is activism, because nowadays a lot of documentary photographers are also activists, and so like they talk about issues, they tell story about issues that they really experience in their lives. So all those aspects here like play a role together. Like, but talking about where everything started very briefly, we can talk about some authors that are seminal in the world of documentary. So one of these is, of course, August Sander, and with his work on German people in the 20s and in the 30s. And of course, Walker Evans and Dorothea Lang with the FSA project in the 30s in the US. They started to look at the work and at the word and tell stories that have crucial, that talk about crucial issues in the contemporary times. And the same did Robert Adams relating to the landscape that is part of documentary photography also nowadays. And then maybe the landmark photo essay that changes the approaches to editorial documentary photography was the very famous story realized by Eugene Smith for Life magazine 1948. And it was the story of the country doctor, no? And it was like still nowadays something that we propose to our students like a very compelling example. So of course, nowadays, the approach to pictures and to photography has changed, but still those names, those projects are a kind of lights and a kind of references for documentary photographers. So like moving forward to the contemporary times, what we see is that like today, who the photographers who take up the challenge of documenting human experience and events that shape our world employ multiple and different strategies that
go behind the traditional position of photojournalism, and so go behind what we has seen before. So like a few examples, just to let you understand how documentary photography, what is documentary photography nowadays. This is a very interesting body of work realized by Paolo Pellegrini and Alex Maioli, who are two Italian photographers. They are members of Magnum Agency, and in 2015 they realized they worked this body work together in Congo to describe the life in the country, and they combine together different approaches to photography. So they work in black and white, they work in colors, they use collages, they display, they work in a very compelling exhibition in Arles, the most important photography festival in the world.
Like telling us that documentary photography is much more than the work in the field, and can use like very contemporary kind of languages together with classical and traditional approaches to photography. So as you can see here, this is a collage, and it was part of this body of work, and it's like it works together with more traditional kind of picture, like that following one that maybe is what we expect to see from a documentary project. But like those different approaches merging together, they like give us a new
vision for contemporary documentary photography. And this is an installation view from the exhibition that was also merging together different ways to show different materials and different display for contemporary photography. And this is really what is going on nowadays in contemporary documentary photography. Like moving forward, then also like works like this one used to like see a traditional topic of photojournalism in a new approach that is like slower, that is like realized with a medium format camera, so like with a very kind of meditative approach that is far from photojournalism, is something that is into documentary right now. This is another example. This is maybe one of the most compelling recent documentary work about the US. It's Paul Graham, and it's his body of work, American Nights, was using kind of conceptual approach to photography that still give information and still can let us understand better the American society, and which is the goal, the main goal of documentary photography.
It's to help us to better understand contemporary issues. So it's perfectly what we expect to see.
Move forward. So like you see, different approaches combined together, and
also activism, as I said before, like this work has circulated a lot. 2017 was a work about queer community in Iran, and it was merging like fashion photography approach to documentaries. Like that's how like contemporary photography in general works. So like having no borders and trying to push the boundaries of different fields of photography. And of course, there are two topics that are fundamental in the discussion around documentary photography. One of it is like citizen photojournalism and how it impacts on the work of professionals. And so this, for example, is a body of work documenting the Arab revolt in the north of Africa, 2012. And it was a body of work made of Polaroids taken to the screen, like selecting compelling frames from YouTube videos taken by citizens. So it was like both a reflection around the medium and around the news and the changes that the information system is living and it's still like experiencing nowadays. So, and this was an awarded body of work, very famous here in Italy, but that circulated all around the world. The same, we can say the same about this recent work of Jonas Bendixen. It was a famous case in documentary photography because most of the photos and all the texts included in these books were generated with the artificial intelligence. So it was like a work that questioned our knowledge of AI and the impact of fake news and fake imagery on the information system and on our knowledge of the world. So all those aspects plays a role in the landscape of contemporary documentary photography. So let's go like into the field, and I would like to ask Emanuele how he deals with the his editorial work before and then later how he deals with personal project and so like kind of long-term project.
Hi everyone. Thanks, Chiara, and thanks for the question. And yes, as Ruslan and Chiara introduced me, like I'm a documentary editorial photographer, freelancing since about 10 years now. I've been studying photography and back in Rome, where I was born and raised, and then I spent a year in Denmark, going deeper in the journalism field, having this international program at the Danish School of Media and Journalism, and I did that in 2015. So as soon as I got back from Denmark, I started freelancing and building up my network and relationship with magazine and media outlets around the world, and it's like it's super interesting field, not the easiest one for sure, but it gives you the opportunity to find yourself in situation and that you would never been able to access or to experience. So every time, every story the magazine assign you is like different from each other. It can be a portrait story or it can be a wider story, and it's always change every time. So let's go a bit deeper. I will show you some example of previous story I did for magazine and newspaper, and this is quite recent. I did it last year, last spring in Florence. For I work mainly with international publications, German, United States, and some UK based magazine, and this one was for Zeit, the German newspaper, and it was about the election in Florence. That spring in Florence, there was the election for the new mayor, and there was one of the candidates running for mayor was Eike Schmidt, who's the former Uffizi Museum director. And so being a German, and both German and Italian citizenship, Zeit was interested in having a focus on him, and they asked me to portray him and to follow him during his campaign for a day, and it was quite a challenge because, as you can imagine, he was super busy running around from one event to another, and we had to find a moment and a situation to portray him. So and the newspaper asked me to do it in the center of Florence, because of course they want the relationship with the art and the culture, and his art historian background as a former Uffizi director. So I knew that they wanted me to portray him somewhere in the city, but I don't know if you've ever been to Florence. It's quite a crowded and busy city with a lot of tourists around, especially in the city center. So at the end, I managed to find a way to focus on his portrait using a tripod and a long exposure. So asking him basically to stand still and to let all the tourists passing by behind him. So basically only him and the statue were like then in focus. And then of course the portrait, but also some other more general picture done during the day, like an event he attended with some of his supporters, and you always have to find a way to balance the more like context side images, so picture that set the context of the story, and then of course the focus of this, what the story is about. So in this case, of course, Heike Schmidt, and this is the final result. So generally with newspaper, you never know how your story will be edited and how it will be displayed as a layout. Of course, you have an interaction and a relationship with the photo editor at the magazine, but you really don't know how it will look at the end. So it's always nice to see when the story goes out, to see how the magazine decided to focus on some aspect more than other. And basically, so when you have a story like on a magazine, as we saw before, like with the country doctor story from Life magazine in the 40s, it didn't change so much. So you always have, that you have some specific images that you need to show in order to let the viewer relate to what they are reading in the text. And another funny story, completely different, is that I did is this one for another German magazine. Is a sport magazine focused only on football and football culture. And they sent me to San Marino, which is, I don't know if you know, but it's this super small nation within Italy, that has a national football team made out of players that are not kind of professional players, but they have like, they do the football player has a side job in a way, and so it's a very, very small national football team that generally always lose a lot. They never score a goal and something like that. And last year there was the UEFA Nations League tournament, and they were together in the same group with Liechtenstein and Gibraltar. So these three very small nations battling each other for a spot in the qualification. And so I was there focusing and documenting both the match again, Liechtenstein and Gibraltar, and also focusing on the fun. And I was kind of a witness of something historical, because they finally eventually won a match, an official match. So it was quite an important moment for them. And this is kind of, as you can see, a completely different situation than the previous story I showed, and it's something that not only as a context and as a topic, but also as technically speaking, because I would need like a specific equipment for sport photography, and it was completely different different approach. But so one thing that you have to adapt every time to what you will find, being still aware that the magazine wanted called you because of your vision in a way, no? So you always have to find a balance between the story and the context you will meet with your own vision and your own voice, and being able to do so, it's something quite challenging every time. And another example I will show you, it's not German magazine, but it's a Swiss magazine, so still German speaking publication. And this was something completely different, way more kind of complicated in a way, because they reached out to me asking to follow this journalist who was writing about a serial killer very famous in Italy that killed, like, I don't remember exactly how many, but a lot of young couples between the 70s and the 80s in Italy, especially around the province of Florence. So that it's famous to be called like the monster of Florence, so Il Mostro di Firenze in Italian. And it's one of the most famous cold case in the Italian history, criminal history. And the magazine wanted me to kind of revisit the places where the murder happened, to visit the archive of the local newspaper that was one of it's a national, it has a national distribution, but it's based in Florence. So back in the days, the journalists were the ones who followed and covered the story the most. And then visiting like important spots related to the story and meeting this guy you see here. Roberto Taddeo is a writer, an author who wrote like this big encyclopedic work about the monster of Florence in 3 volumes, retracing all the story and all the trials, collecting all the evidence available, and making a huge effort to kind of find an answer to this story that still nowadays it doesn't have an end. And so it was kind of challenging to to find a way to mix and balance all these different elements, very different from each other. So as you can see, we have like still life, landscapes, more emotional in a way, picture and details, everything that has to be mixed and merged together. And it was super intense. And I mean, it generally, when you work with a magazine, is never super a long assignment. It lasts one day or maybe 2 or 3 maximum. In this case, we developed together with the editorial team at the magazine, which is called Das Magazine. We developed like the story within maybe 2 or 3 weeks, which is like for a publication time. It's a very huge window, and it was very interesting and challenging. In this case in particular, I remember last year I involved my students at Accademia. I'm a lecturer with the master program students, and I asked them to join me on the field, just to show them how it is to work on the field, because it's of course it's interesting now to see and to talk about the theoretical aspect in class, but it's very important for them also to experience it directly. So they were like my assistants, and it was also a way to kind of not being alone in this, especially in this spot in the countryside at night, completely alone with where the murders happened. So it was interesting. Well, so switching and going back to something different, to personal projects. On the side, together with my editorial assignments, I carry on and I focus on personal projects. So I don't know, Chiara, you want to say something about to introduce something?
Yes, just to give you a general introduction before like looking at 3 of the most recent personal project that Emanuele has developed. So when we talk about long-term projects, and we of course like talk about different steps, in the development of the work. So like everything starts with an idea, then there is the research that is maybe the most important part of the process, and then there are like the last step that is about the outcomes of the project and the platforms where the project can be conveyed. And so every time, every project have kind of same steps in the process. And so personal project can be can start because of an idea, because an urgency to talk about an issue, but also because of opportunities that you can find in a photography world, so like commissions from institutions or like artist residencies that still represent a very interesting opportunities for documentary photographers. And so like developing a project means to challenge your vision, to find a story, to deal with memory, visual memory, and to develop a narrative, and to deal with processes like editing and sequencing, and understanding target of your work, because actually
it means a lot to understand and to know very well which is the target of your projects. So like when we talk about ideas and research, we talk about motivation and intention behind the project. We talk about how a project can like start in the personal and like then comes to a universal um, field. And so we talk also about references and inspiration. So we talk about the research that we did, like to see who has before has deal with the same topics. And of course, in the development of the project, we also ask ourselves some crucial questions. So why I'm working to this project, which is the intention behind, which is the goal of my project, how, so which are the visual approaches and the visual narratives that I would like to use in my project, and for whom, so which is the target, as I said before. And then the outcomes, so like the project is so to become a book, a zine, or like it's made to become an exhibition, an installation, a multimedia platform, or and so all, I mean, every outcome has a different process. So it requires a different process. So it requires a different selection, a different sequence, a different relationship between images and texts that are sometimes fundamental in documentary kind of projects, and also deals about different materials. Um, so like we can maybe deepen a bit more better those aspects, speaking about your personal project, Emanuele.
Yeah, yeah. This the first one we are going through is this one. The title is Notes for a Silent Man, and it's a project that I did during my master year in Denmark. It started as during our class. We had a class in Denmark called Personal Project, indeed, and where we were kind of invited to focus on some personal issues. So I decided to take advantage of that moment to use photography to communicate with my dad, to tell him something that I was never able to tell him by words. Because since my parents got divorced, my relationship with my dad was getting colder and colder, and we didn't share too much in common. So I felt that we were kind of losing each other, and so I decided to use that project, this moment, to kind of write him a letter in picture. And the problem in my case was to find a way to communicate to him through picture, because he is not used at all to read photography, to read messages through pictures. So I had to find a way a link to kind of communicate to him what I wanted through my images. And I did what I did was to go to browse back the family albums, and so my family archive, to find old picture that could kind of have details or suggest him an emotion, a feeling, and something that I wanted to tell him. And so the project itself is structured with three different main areas, which are like the archival, the picture from my family album, self-portraits that I did on myself, with, of course, as self-portraits, as the word says, and then landscape that I took during a trip, a road trip I made back to the places where we used to spend summer holidays. I went back to those places because I thought that we always spent the summer holidays in the same spots in Italy, one in the south, in the south, in the seaside, at the seaside, and one in the north, in the Alps. And so I thought that visiting again those places could be a way to communicate to him through spots and places that he knew already and were familiar to him, but showing them from a grown-up perspective. So I traveled around Italy to those places, and then while I was traveling, I also turned the camera towards myself to kind of investigate my body and my myself, my identity, and to show him that I wasn't anymore the kid, a kid, but a man, an adult man. And the result of that project was became a book, a photo book, and it was something that was clear since the beginning that the book form would have been the one that would fit mostly this project. So once I was done with the project, I started showing it around to professional at festivals and editors, and then I found this publisher, this Italian publisher in Arles during the festival in Arles, and he really fell in love with the project. So it became in 2016. It became a book. The publisher is Witty Books, and it's like a photography independent publisher. So the outcome in this case was quite clear since the beginning, and of course it was beautiful to see the circle closing basically and having it published. Of course, this doesn't mean that one outcome exclude another one, a possible one. So as photography itself, every picture is a grammar, no, and it has a different meaning. Also, the outcomes can be different. And with this project, I was selected in Reggio Emilia in one very important festival in Italy, and we focused with a part of it focus on young Italian photography, and so it became an exhibition as well. So I had to rethink of the same project from an installation and exhibition point of view, and which was challenging and completely different from the book. Another project that we want to show is something that completely different, and it's something made together with Chiara. And again, it's still a book, but it has developed in different outcomes throughout the past months. And it's a story, it's called The Passenger Ship, as you can see, and it's a story about one of the most tragic naval incident occurred in Italy in the 90s. And again, it's something that still nowadays, after 35 years, we don't know the complete truth about. It happened in Livorno, which is like very close to where we live in Pisa. And basically it's it's the story about this ferry leaving Livorno harbor, heading to Sardinia, this island in Italy, and right after the ferry left, he hit against an oil tanker right outside the Livorno port, and due to the incident, of course, there was a severe fire in the ferry, and the ferry started to wander around in front of the Italian coast for hours without anyone rescuing the people on board. And the fire at the end eventually led to the death of 140 people on board. And it's a story that, together with Chiara, when we started planning the project and researching the project, really caught our attention, because, as Chiara said before, every personal project has different stages, and probably the most important one is the research itself, which is important because gives you let you to get deeper in the topic, no, and give and adding more layers to the story itself. And the more we studied and we read and we saw documentary about the story, the more we realized that it was a completely almost forgotten story of the Italian in the Italian culture, and it was something incredible, because it's still a very, very tragic story where a lot of people died, and we started meeting the families and the relatives of the victims, and we saw how hard it was for them to struggle with seeking for a truth since 30 years without always being like bouncing back from the governor and the statal officials that reduced everything to a simply an accident. And again, after we started working on the project, we started showing it around, mostly to have some feedbacks on the project while we were working on it. And we met this publisher who fell in love with the story and was really impressed by the story itself, and who didn't know anything about it. And they, while we were still working on the project, they asked us if we wanted to publish a book with them about the story. So in this case, again, we for us was clear that the book would be the outcome, the outcome we wanted, but also the project itself is structured with many different medias, not only photography itself, but videos, audio recordings from that night, and drawings from the witness. So many different elements that we collected, and then when we had the opportunity to exhibit the work, we used that elements, combining them together with screenings and audio files to let the viewer immerse in the story and the picture, of course, itself. But the exhibition level allowed us to have many different layers. I don't know if Chiara wants to add something about, but
no, that's what we said before, no? So like documentary deals with different, not just with photography nowadays. So it's a kind of transmedia narratives that we can realize, and so like combining together different medias, and it's very much effective. So like the book still is most of the time the main outcome for documentary project, but exhibitions allowed you to use and to like enhance this combination of different medias. So as you can see here in this installation view, there were texts from the audio recordings, there were pictures, there were like projection and screenings.
Also,
so
the picture itself were like exhibited in with different outcomes,
materials.
like in frames and materials, yeah, with different supports. So frames and stickers, kind of, and so just to quickly go through the last project, since Chiara said in the introduction, personal project can start from a personal urge about something, of course, but also from commission from an art institution or a cultural institution, an association. And in this case, this project was the result of an artist residency I had here in Tuscany some years ago. And this artist residency was run by this local association in Prato, which is a city, the second city in Tuscany, probably very close to Florence. And this association works with photography, but also using photography as a medium to deepen the relation with the local community as well, especially in Prato, because in Prato there is one of the biggest Chinese community in Europe. And so basically we were 3 artists invited in this artist residency, and they asked us to focus on this Chinese culture and influence in the neighborhood in the city. And in my case, I decided to focus on second generation teenagers living in Prato and having high school in Prato, and because I was interested in this kind of adolescence in general, is always an interesting and transitional moment of the year of a life, and in this case, being like living this combination of like Western and Eastern influences, it was super intriguing, and so I spent like almost a month going around the city and meeting guys and photographing the places where they hang around. And then we had like a screening and a presentation in a museum in Prato, and in an contemporary art museum in Prato. So just as a quick example of that kind of personal work can start also from a commission and from as a result of a residency. I think we got to the end.
Yeah, so there's time for like some questions. If you have any, we're happy to reply.
Yes, we do have some, so I will read loudly, so if you want to answer
Yeah.
to them. So I will start with this one. Gilda, can you give me tips for working in editorial photography? How did you end up with that job?
Okay. Well, never give up on first, because it takes time to build up a network of and a relationship with the editor. And I started visiting and doing a lot of portfolio review in festivals and situation like that, showing up my work to editors that or to people that I really wanted to work with. and little by little, then I made it through in a way. And also, I mean, don't forget that you can have a website or Instagram page or something that to showcase your work, and simply send out some emails, even if you don't get any answer, but the editors will read your email, will see your work, and slowly will get to know you, and maybe they will call you at the end. So it's something that it can be, I know that it can be very frustrating in the beginning, because you have to struggle a bit to fight a bit to get to know, but it's something doable. I mean, of course, the editorial industry in general is not so, it's not an easy moment historically for the editorial environment, but still it's possible to have some assignments and to do this kind of job. So mostly,
sorry.
no, mostly go around, show your work to professionals, to editors, and do some public relation. That's it's annoying, but it's important part of the job.
Yes, and be careful to like talk with a specific target of photo editors. Like, so be informed about their work and what they like and what their magazine talks about. Don't go random. Like,
No,
that's
absolutely,
quite
yeah.
that's quite important. So like be prepared and like study what they usually publish in their magazine, because that's part of the discussion. Otherwise, it looks like you didn't take your time to understand who they are. So why they should take their time to get in contact with you? So that's something that it's like a bit undervalued, but I think on like since I'm a curator, so usually stay on the other side. I think it's quite important to consider.
Perfect. Now I will pose two questions, which one of those is in Italian. Of course, the
Okay.
answer will be in English. The other one is in English. Secondo
Yeah.
voi la verità in fotografia è qualcosa che si scopre o qualcosa che si costruisce? First question. Second question, as a beginner photographer, I would like to know how you would found your own style. So how to find my own style as a beginner in photographer.
So like if I can ask the first question. So like truth in photography is something that you build up. I mean through your personal approach, through your personal voice, you can ask questions to the viewers. I mean, I think that's the main goal of documentary projects. So not giving replies, answers, but asking questions. So like allowing people to be aware of what is happening around and helping them to think about contemporary issues and topics or stories coming from the past, like as the passenger was, and also we were not like giving any answers. We are like just inviting viewers to ask questions, to inform themselves and to go deeper. And maybe about
for the second one, I would say that a lot is about looking at other jobs, other projects, other photography in a way, to see where the photography world is going in a way, and what's happening in the scene, and to get used to read photography, because if you, as any other art, is a language, no, and it has its own grammar. So the more we are used to that language, the more we are familiar with it, the better we are able to express ourselves through picture. And another thing is definitely find your personal need in what you want to express and what you want to tell. We always tend to, especially in the beginning, to go for the universal meaning of something that we want to do and to know, instead of the personal small meaning. And maybe we should do the opposite, no, and switch the perspective, because starting from something very, very personal and small can be the key to reach a wider audience and a wider public, because then the viewer can relate himself, herself to what you show, and then your work, it becomes compelling. And that's the way, I mean, that's something that defines you, your vision, your style, and so on. I know that it sounds easy in words, but yeah, but it's all about that.
It's where to start it. It's where to start. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. So we have actually a lot of questions. I will of course have to do a selection. Then guys, if you have more questions, if you want to dig down on certain aspects, you can always get in contact with us, with our professors, and we can, you know, set up, let's say, a meeting or a focus meeting on that. We have a question. What advice would you give to an emerging photographer to get more freelance projects and to pitch to important magazine or companies? How to stand out and make my photography work more visible?
Well, as I said before, just keep sending emails, keep doing portfolio reviews, and I mean,
and also apply to grant and award and prizes. Like there's a lot dedicated to emerging photographers, like devoted to that section of the photography world. And so it's a very good way to let your work circulate. And so especially the ones that are like free, I think they are a valuable opportunity to share your work, like internationally also.
Okay, okay. We have very challenging question now. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a challenging question. Be prepared. Zaira is challenging us with this question. If every documentary photograph carries a fragment of the photographer's identity, do you think objectivity is ever possible, or its authorship is very essence of true in visual storytelling? So can we be objective whenever we do a project as a photographer?
Do you want to reply, and then I add something? Before the author and then the curator.
well, I would say that you will never be objective. I mean, it's always your take on reality, your take on a subject and on a topic. So that's the interesting thing. I mean, as Chiara said before, no, it's not about answering, but raising questions. So it's good to be not objective and subjective.
Yeah, you can stay in this truth, like in the objective, in a kind of objective approach, like doing a very deep research on what you're telling a story about, but then your story will always be subjective. It's your point of view, it's your way to frame the story, and so I think it could
And
be
the same topic, the same object, the same thing can be photographed and told in infinite ways.
yes.
So
Perfect. Now we have a couple of questions about inspiration. Where do you take inspiration? How to avoid to be repetitive as a photographer? How to see photography not only from a technical point of view, but from an emotional point of view. I mean, if you can, just give us some glimpse about these points.
about being repetitive, I would say that you should find someone, some external point of view about someone that you trust, of course, and you to show your work to, and listen to what they say, because sometimes, especially when it comes to personal projects, we are so deeply immersed in that that we are not objective anymore in a way, no, and we lose track of where we are going, how many repetition we used, and stuff like that. So in the case, like to make a concrete example, with Notes for a Silent Man, the book, the first project that I showed you, the very first selection of that before getting published was way longer and way more repetitive, and then having a constant dialogue with the publisher, we cut out a lot of picture out, and they were not needed. Instead, we focus on something more important, and then that's how you definitely a way to avoid repetition. Trusting someone and listening to them, and then of course the more you do, the more also you get to know your work, no, as well, and then you are able to take a distance from it. And yeah, what was it? Was that then
And
inspiration?
of course, like inspiration. So like go visiting exhibition, festival, buy photo books, stay like updated with what happens in the photography world, because it's a way to know
Also like new languages, new approaches, new opportunities, and so you should like always be keep like continue to be curious and look around, explore the photography world whenever you can. So
And then on the technical aspect of photography as well, try to not be super like maniac about the technical aspect, because it's not so important. Of course, like progress and new cameras and stuff are helpful for the job and to reach and to get the job done, but you can do like an amazing project even with a pinhole camera, or like, I don't know, your phone, or like it's plenty of great photographers using very poor uh, cameras or technical instrument. Like, so what's important is the idea behind, and the reason why you did so, and all this stuff. So you can also work just with screenshots, or like whatever you feel like, no? And still it's the message that it's worth it. So that's 90% of your visual approach, of your style, of your voice. And
Perfect. Last question, and this is an interesting one for Emanuele specifically. How do you
Yeah.
face the AI in your job? Now we talk a lot about the artificial intelligence in video, in photography, in our lives. And what is the most important difference for you against it? So how do, professionists in photography somehow not really fight, but answer to this new technology?
Well, yeah, that's something very compelling, because I realized that since like AI raised got so much attention in recently, that myself as a viewer, as a reader, and of course as a professional, I I don't trust it anymore as in the first place. Like every time I read something or I see something very uh, important, or very like a strong image or something like that, I if it happened 10 years ago, of course, that was an evidence, no, of something really happening. Now, my first reaction is that, is it true or not? Like, is it fake or not? And that's something that kind of sad, because it really changed our perception of the media, no? And it's something that we always have to keep our awareness high, in a way, because it's so easy it's like the project we showed earlier, like the book of Velas, like made all of fake news and AI generated picture. It's something that incredible, that if you don't know, you would believe that are like it's a real town, a real people, real story. And that's why it's so powerful, because it really uh, creates kind of a breaks the balance between the truth, what's true and not. And so in my case, on the journalistic point of view, I always keep my attention very high when it comes to picture nowadays. On the other side, AI is definitely helping a lot and speeding up a lot all the editing process and all the archival process and stuff like that. So of course it's something that I welcome in a way. So it's always like being on yeah, keep it balanced, and it's not easy sometimes, but like video AI, it's crazy. Like Sora now, it makes something really, really true and real in a way, and that's it can be very easy to twist it in the wrong direction in a way, no? So as a professional, we need to keep the attention super high on that.
Perfect. Thank you, Emanuele. So I think we reached the end of this session. I would like once again to thank Chiara and Emanuele for their intervention. I would like to thank the organization of Encuentro Creativo for hosting us and hosting Accademia Italiana. Remember, guys, that we have this contest of the one full scholarship for the summer course in photography for the next summer. Remember to read carefully the contest and make sure to participate at least at 50% of all the editions of the webinars of Encuentro Creativo, and prepare the projects, accordingly to the brief that we will be sending. If you have any questions, we'll be at your disposal to support you. And we truly hope to see you in Florence or Rome or one of our campuses. Thank you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you, everyone.
everyone.